Hello and welcome to another episode of the From the Beehole podcast. Here we are again, 21 games gone, 13 points on the board and just 3 from the last 36. The result against Manchester United was the latest of those points. But are Burnley's Premier League numbers up, or is there a complicated equation that still keeps us up? And to discuss this and more, we've got the beautiful minds of Andrew Greaves and Martin Barnes tonight. And let's start with last night's game. And Andrew, I suppose we've got to reflect on, is it a point gained or 2 points lost?
That's an interesting question. I mean, before the game, you'd have taken a draw, of course you would. I think the way we started again and the way we made them look quite ordinary, I mean, the disallowed goal aside, I mean, there were a couple of chances, but we kind of looked pretty good. We kept hitting them on the break. Marcus Edwards, again, you sat and wondering why it's taken us half a season to get him into the side, because I thought he looked fantastic in large parts. And then when we get it back to 2-2, we're in the ascendancy a little bit. We take Edwards off, which I'd forgot about until you mentioned it earlier today, Daz. And then we kind of go, well, we'll just play for a draw. We're kind of in their corner in injury time. And you're thinking you've got Martinez, who I think is shite. You've got Yoro, who I don't think's much better. Bit at 6s and 7s. I don't think the goalkeeper's great. Apply some pressure. You've got Foster doing his usual bits. You've got Jadon Anthony, who's just scored an absolute cracker, trying to get the ball. But it all just seemed like Parker was happy to take a draw. And I was saying to Peter, who I go on with, I was saying, at some point we're going to have to start trying to win football matches. And so in that respect, it's a point. It's 2 points dropped, I think. I think it's 2 points dropped, and that's a big, it is a big issue for us, because if we don't start winning football matches, as you said in the intro, the numbers up and the complicated scenario doesn't even become a thing. Really, that's the big kind of issue for us.
It wasn't just the fact that he took Edwards off for me, it was the fact that he took Edwards off for Son. And he wasn't exactly managing his minutes because it was the 92nd minute of the game. I found it a very, very strange substitution, that.
Yeah, it was one of those where you kind of think, well, look, Son's stripped, fair enough. We're probably hoping we're going to see it out a little bit. We're just going to make sure that we get a draw, because United had a couple of chances. The young lad who came on crashed one off the bar, and he pushed, he had one just wide. But then when you see us going on the attack, surely as a manager, you just think, there's only, there's 300 seconds left or whatever it is. There's 3 minutes left of injury time. Let's just kind of keep in the ascendancy. What's Edwards gaining by saving 3 minutes of injury time? He'll probably get a rest on Saturday, because it'll be Chowner and Brun Larson in, perhaps. Yeah, it kind of smacked of, his starting lineup felt a little bit unadventurous. Up with a back five. And then his substitutions late on, I kind of felt, give us something to cheer about. Give us something to get us off his seat, I'd have been sticking Chowner on. I'd have been going, you know what, we've got 5 at back. We can move Laurent into midfield, or take Laurent off. Probably take one of the other two off, Florentino or Ugochukwu, because they both look knackered. So move Laurent into midfield, go to a back 4, stick Chowner on, and really take the game to United, because they are ropey. That's probably one of the worst United sides on paper and on the pitch that I've seen in the Premier League years, I think.
Well, you've just taken 2 notes off my notepad there, which was back 5, ? And worst United side in Premier League history, ? Martin, where do you stand on last night, and against what was a pretty poxy Man United side, if you take Bruno Fernandes out of it? Could we have done
a little bit? I'm a little bit happier than Greavsey, I think, there. I completely understand where he's coming from, and it did feel at times we were a little bit cautious, but we're on the back of such a rotten run of form that confidence is got to be an issue, and that's from the manager and the players, I think. I agree, he did set it up a little bit cautiously. I think he's just trying to steady the ship a little bit and get a couple of points on the board. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, and as he sees the confidence growing the players, hopefully he'll go a little bit more, not even gung-ho, but a little bit more attacking. But I was encouraged by the game. I think I completely agree with Greavesy about the central midfielders. By the end, they were knackered, and they could have done with a little bit of refreshing in there. But I think what made me quite pleased was the players looked to be playing for the manager. They didn't look like they were going, right, do you know what? We want rid of this guy. We're just going to throw one in and sort of let him get the sack. The clearances off the line, I know we're saying worst United team in a while, but if we have it right, they've hit the bar. The guys flash one just past the top corner, and they've had 2 cleared off the line that are going in. So on a different day, we lose that game. So I think Parker's maybe had a look at that and go, there was a feeling, I definitely felt at half time watching at home on the telly, I thought, United are going to get at least a goal here. I was thinking they're going to win it 2-1, if I'm being perfectly honest. So when it got to 2-1, I thought, well, that's it. We're done. So as we've talked about before, we struggle for creativity. But then Anthony bangs one in the top corner, sort of Benson-esque, if we like. So I'm a bit more happy with it. I know we've got a terrible run of games. I think maybe he's setting us up like this, almost looking with those games, the Liverpools and all that are coming up. Maybe he's thinking we might need to play like this a little bit more. So it's almost like refreshing the players' memory, as it were. I don't know.
You took the next statement I had on my notepad off the list there as well, Martin, when I was going to say Man United's chances. Bashir Humphries got man of the match, and I thought he did okay, Bashir Humphries, to be fair, but the defence was carved open plenty of times. Goal disallowed, 2 cleared off the line, hit the bar, numerous chances. Greavsey, have we finally earned that bit of luck and include Bashir Humphries' goal in that we've been craving for so long that might just turn the corner?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really, when Humphries' goal went in, where I'm sat at the Jimmy Mack end of the long side upper, I'm kind of thinking, I don't know how that's gone in. The way he shaped his body, and then you see on the big screen it takes a deflection. So you kind of go, right, well, that's one bit of luck. And then when the goal goes in and the referee blows after the goal's gone in, I kind of thought, hang on a minute, there might be something here, because I thought there'd been a foul in the build-up, and somebody on one of the message boards said there was something like 5 seconds from the push from Martinez to the goal going in, and the referee should have blown for the initial foul. Blow the foul, don't let VAR re-referee it. And then when it said VAR check, I kind of thought, well, hang on a minute, this could be that massive slice of luck that we've not had in other games. We've been on the wrong side of refereeing decisions. But you're right about the chance. I mean, with a better striker than Shesko, I mean, we've basically gift-wrapped 2 goals for him by and large. He's not scoring in a million years, but he had the chance. I mean, he should have really had a hat-trick. There were a couple that he hit straight to Dubravka, catching practice really for Martin. But with a better striker, you can guarantee if we go to Liverpool or we've got Spurs at home, Richarlison scores them, or even Wirtz on the run he's been on probably scores at least one of them. Ekitike scores one of them. So Martin's right. The chances that United had, I mean, the young lad crashing one off the bar, that was superb. But again, looking at those defensive clearances, we've spoken so often about, where's that defending like your life depends on it. And twice we've rescued, we've turned a certain goal into a corner, or we've turned a certain goal into a clearance, because suddenly we've found that determination, we've found that grit to go out and, the ball's not dead until it hits the back of the net. So if you've got a chance to get there, pull your finger out and try and get there. And we did that yesterday. And that was the pleasing part of it. It'd been really easy if the players were looking at getting rid of Parker. You'd have flung a leg out and gone, look, I tried to stop it, but you know what? We're 3-1 down before half-time at that point.
I think it's clear. I think it's clear. You give your opinions, guys. I think it's clear the players are still playing for Parker. And probably the sort of energy and fight in the side was probably never more exemplified than Hannibal. I mean, the guy's an enigma, and he'd start a fight in a phone box with his own shadow. But and you run that fine line with Hannibal, don't you? But he brought that energy back to the side last night, I thought, Martin. What did you think of his performance?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we'll kind of skirt over the which he's done a couple of times now this season, hasn't he? I don't quite get what he's hoping to achieve there, because the refs are not daft at that level, and they're used to it. But yeah, no, his energy was good. I quite enjoyed seeing him play. I was quite surprised to see that front three as a combination. I don't think I'd have predicted that in any way, shape or form. So I enjoyed the way he got stuck in a little bit. And he did move it about a bit. I just wish he'd shoot more. He's had that. When he did have a shot that was blocked, he had far less space and time than the one where he's going across the box. And all right, it's going to be on his left foot, but just, swing a leg at it, because it might flash into the top corner or the bottom corner, or it might get a deflection. You just never know what's happening. But overall, I thought he was good. Going back to the defending, I think it's tricky for the players because they haven't played as a three, have they? I don't think in any of the games that we've had. So I think they're going to get chances created against them, because they're probably not quite sure who's supposed to do what. Going back to last season when we had Egan Riley and Esteve, they kind of knew exactly where they were going to be. So I think that's always going to be a tricky one. You've got Laurent, Esteve and Humphreys who've not played as a 3. It's going to be difficult. But no, Hannibal, I thought, was one of the brighter players last night, because there were a couple I thought that were a little bit off the pace of it.
My problem for me with the 5 is that we don't look any tighter with a 5 than we do with a 4. And we lose the creativity, so I'd rather have that more attacking player on the pitch. And at that end of the pitch, another player I wanted to pick up on, Andrew, was Jaden Anthony, who's had a really rough time, I think, over the past few months. But he's shown again a little bit of spark and a little bit of quality. A lovely assist from Matt Edwards again, by the way, but he's shown that spark that he can get the goal. That's 5 now for the season for Jaden Anthony, and if anyone looks like they're going to get a goal for us, it usually is Jaden Anthony.
Yeah, and I think the thing is getting him on when Edwards is in full floor, because we said last season so many times, like, Edwards brings players to him. It does open up a bit of space for Anthony. I mean, he received the ball and still kind of went past 2 United players before curling it past the goalkeeper into the top corner. But I do think kind of Anthony with Brun Larson doesn't really work, because they both want to be on the left, and, Brun Larson's, his only position really is on the left-hand side. He's not great on the right, or not as good on the right. Same for Anthony. But I think giving Edwards and Anthony the free role, which they kind of had for 20, 25 minutes, where they were kind of interchanging. We had no real width apart from Walker and Pires coming out from the back. And I didn't think either of them had that good a game. Pires was all right. I thought Walker was pretty poor again. I think he's a real problem for us at the minute. But I think the getting Anthony and Marcus Edwards in free roles behind a striker like Breuer, who, again, worked his socks off, feeding on scraps, looked a bit knackered, run of games has probably not helped him, will help him in the long run, but it's probably not helped him in terms of being fresh for Man United without Fleming and Foster being there to take some of the load. But yeah, I think Anthony kind of, took his chance really well, and it was kind of quite interesting to see the players kind of look to some of the stands and be almost kind of saying, this is his man, this is what he does, this, you can knock him all you want, but this, they were pointing at him, and, not quite Will Smith get his name out your mouth, but it was kind of a bit of I thought that was a bit of a kind of nod to the fans of, look, this is what this guy does, give him a chance. He's going to do it. And I'd like to see more of that. And I want, I think against Millwall on Saturday, I want to see us put out the best possible side that we can to get more minutes into whatever system with whatever players we're going to be playing. Yes, rest the goalkeeper, give young Max Weiss a game. But other than that, I'm wanting to see us be as strong as we can, because, we've got that horrible run of games, as Martin said, coming up with Liverpool and Spurs coming up, I think, next after Millwall.
Martin, the Cup gives us a little bit of a time to take stock now of where we are, and also, Scott Parker takes stock of what's required. I mean, where does this leave Scott Parker? I mean, his position was definitely under threat, I would suggest, before the game. The Bloods have put a performance in, they've got a point, they've stopped the rot. Does that strengthen his position? Does it just put it on hold for now, or where do we sit?
It definitely puts it on hold, doesn't it? Whether it strengthens it or not, kind of, we'd have to be inside the minds of Valent Pace and ALK on that, wouldn't we? The Cup is such a difficult one, isn't it? So we as fans want, like Andrew says, the best team, go for it, get some minutes in the legs, win the game, go on a cup run, blah, 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 blah. But we all know in reality that, unfortunately, it's the money of the Premier League that is what motivates the clubs, isn't it? So I wouldn't be surprised to see, not necessarily wholesale changes, because I don't think we've got enough fit bodies to do that, but I think it might be like half a team that's rotated. I don't know whether he'll play the same system with a 5, or whether he will go a little bit more adventurous just to try and go for it, given that we are playing Millwall, who I know are in the Championship, but again, top 3 of the Championship is different than the Liverpools and the Spurs, the top 3 in the Prem. So I don't know whether it strengthened his position. I mean, I'm of the mind that we're halfway through the transfer window nearly now. Is there much point in getting rid of him because we're then going to waste the rest of a window? I would be leaning towards getting him to get a couple of players in that he wants, and then also trying to do that at the start of the summer, if that's what they're thinking, because I just can't see it's just going to be a mess. They need to work out what the identity of the team's going to be, like you've talked about in previous pods, and what is the team going to look like, what kind of players is it that we're wanting to sign, and just try and get a bit more consistency in that. So I'm still pro Parker. I'm not saying he's doing a fantastic job. I'm not going to pretend it's been a great season, but I just can't see how changing the manager at this stage is going to help us. So I've probably not answered your question there, but
No, I think it's the dilemma that's on a lot of tongues, isn't it? I mean, I think the toxicity that we've had at Turf Moor in recent weeks wasn't there last night. Outside in the Jimmy Mack stand, there was a few dissenting voices with a few stray passes, but generally, I think the fans were really good last night and got behind the team. And towards the end of the game, there was also a little frustration that we weren't going for the jugular a little bit. It leads us into the cup game now, Andrew, and it's really hard to preview the cup game when you don't know what the side's going to be. It could well be wholesale changes. You'd imagine Hartman may come back in. Does he change the keeper? Does he change the full-back, centre-backs? What does he look up front? There's so many options available that it's almost impossible to predict. But the one thing that I think the fans would want is a fourth-round spot, because if we're going to go down, we might as well go down fighting and go down swinging and try and have a cup run as well, surely.
Yeah, I think, the Carabao Cup is what it is. The FA Cup's still got a bit of magic about it, hasn't it? You kind of looked at the Millwall draw and kind of thought, well, actually, that's a chance to get into the fourth round.
Not sure it will have when you see the gate on Saturday, but you know what you mean.
Well, no, I mean, this is it, isn't it? I mean, I think half the ground's shut, and, I managed to get tickets on the front row in the Bob Lord just for a bit of a change. But when I looked the other day, there was still plenty of tickets available, kind of in the stands that are open. But I do think there is, I think kind of often you find teams that are perhaps struggling in the Premier League have a bit of almost a kind of needed distraction with a cup run. I'd like to see us kind of go for it. I really would. I'd like to see us play as full a strength side as possible. I think Martin's right. I don't think we've got the strength in numbers with kind of whatever we've got, 11, probably less than 11 players out now with the lads coming back from AFCON. But definitely you change the goalkeeper because, ultimately you might decide in the summer DEBRIEF's not going to get another year, which means that you've either got to recruit a goalkeeper or you go in Max Weiss, who I think, looked all right in the kind of games I've seen in friendlies and cup games. There's not much option really at centre-half. You might have Tuanzebe coming back, but Worrell's injured. Ekdal's on the bench, so it might be Tuanzebe and Ekdal, who for a while have been the first choice in the Premier League. I think you'd play Son. Hartman you'd expect to come back. I'd have played Hartman last night. I like Perez. I think he works hard. He's not the required standard, I don't think, at this level. I don't think he's quite good enough.
I think both fullbacks were poor last night. You touched on Walker, but I thought Perez was poor as well.
Yeah. But I think Hartman gives you a bit of something, especially if you are going to stick with a 5, because you've got Humphreys, who is so mobile on the left-hand side, certainly a bit more mobile than Estev. I think that's the perfect system for Hartman to do all his attacking work. And I think he's got more quality than Perez going forward. I think Hartman struggled a little bit because Estev can't play on the left-hand side of a 5. We put him in the middle last night because I think that gives him a bit of protection either side of him. When he's having to play on the left-hand side, as he was doing early in the season with Walker tucked in and Ekdal playing the central role, because we only had him as a left footer, that's where Estev really struggled. And I think that's when we saw Hartman almost be told, look, you can't really go over the halfway line. It was almost like stand with more Kamara, that kind of like, we know you can bomb on, but we don't want you going over the halfway line. But I think with Humphreys on the left-hand side, I think Hartman is the perfect person to play on that left-hand side and give us that creativity coming out of defence. Walker, I mean, look, he's the marquee signing, he's the ex-England international, he's the guy who's won God knows how many Premier Leagues. I'd be dropping him. I really would. I mean, Son might not quite be the level required, but he works hard. You're asking him to be a traditional right back rather than one that bombs on. He's probably not going to lose his man off as much as Walker does. I mean, there's been a real drop off in Walker's pace over the last couple of months. Start of the season he was tracking back, he was getting. He looks like he's blowing hard quite a lot of the time when he's trying to catch players like Dorgu, who we know Dorgu's a quick player, but. So I'd be looking at kind of, can we build a back 5, if that's what we're going to stick with the players? Laurent will run all day, so he doesn't need a rest. Estev probably needs a couple more games to bring him fully back up to fitness, so play him. Play Humphreys, because that can continue his comeback, and he's looking good. And play Hartman, and then, let's see if we can build a better back 5, albeit against Millwall, different standard, to Liverpool and Spurs, as you've said. The problem is midfield, really, because both them lads need a rest. We've not really got a lot of central midfield options. That's my worry is, do both of them have to play? Or do we bring in 2 young lads again? I know one of the, Bowris, I think, has got a kind of season-ending injury, so he won't be playing. So that's the conundrum, really. And you'd expect perhaps Foster to start. You'd perhaps expect Chowner and Brun Larson to start on the wings. But yeah, I think we're in that, like you say, realms of guesswork, really, for what Scott Parker's going to do on Saturday, because we don't know who we've got and how seriously he's going to treat the cup, really.
I'm taking away from that drop Kyle Walker. I'm taking that out of that. And the reference to Mo Kamara. Yeah. What a play. I loved Mo.
I love the Mo Kamara.
One for the purists. One for the purists, that.
It is one for the purists. What's in terms of going forward, we have got a couple of really tough league games coming on the back of that, and only 2 or 3 games now for the end of the month. Transfer window's upon us. But I can't ask you to name names because it's a tricky one to name names because we haven't got the database in front of us that the analysts have. But what do we need? What does this side need to inject new life into it when you've got like 3 or 4 months of the season to go on a tough run of fixtures coming up?
We just need a 20 to 30 goal a season striker, don't we? That's easy. Yeah. There's a lad at City called Haaland. I think he might just do us a job. We need goals, don't we? We do need goals. That would.
There's a lad called Callum Wilson just been released. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There are strikers out there.
Yeah, there are strikers out there, and that's that could be the John Joe Shelvey signing. And I know it didn't work out brilliantly, but he did look good for the game he was on. Do we give Wilson basically a pay as you play type arrangement, whatever that might be, or is he going to get a better offer from somewhere else? You don't know, dear. But we need goals, absolutely. I think we've touched on it there. Midfield options are short because I'd be looking at perhaps going to a flat back 4 against a Millwall type team and putting Laurent back into centre mid with another, be it a Hannibal or somebody like that. Depends on what wingers he wants to pick. Bernal must be in with a shout of getting a bit of game time there as well. But we need goals. I think we need a bit of cover at centre mid. It just depends what kind of players they are, doesn't it? Because are they getting him on with loans with an obligation to buy again? Are they going to buy, going back to this identity, are they going to buy players that Parker wants, or are they going to buy players that ALK get in? Because, in terms of the quality, you've just highlighted there, arguably fullbacks, we're going to need a couple of those going into next season. So where do you stop? It's like all the other questions. As soon as you start looking, you think, God, we could do with another winger perhaps because we're going to get rid of 2 of them because they're not going in for the Prem. What are we going to be getting the players for? Are we getting them for the remainder of this season, or are we getting them with next season in mind? And that again raises its own issues, doesn't it? But there's nobody that immediately springs to mind other than Callum Wilson, and I'm not sure we can afford his wages. Can we really? Unless we do get him on a pay-as-you-play deal and nobody else fancies him.
There you go, Greavsey. We need a new striker, 2 centre-backs, 2 full-backs, 2 wingers.
Exactly. Easy.
And we'll be all right.
That's the usual ALK shopping list, though, isn't it? It's like the kind of like tear it up and start again kind of thing. But I think Mark's
we're going to sign 3. We'll sign 3 keepers now. You watch.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? It's kind of, who does the data look best on? But, I mean, Marty's right. I mean, we do need goals, and Wilson's the one. And I look at Calvert-Lewin, and Calvert-Lewin, probably of the 3 OAPs, Vardy, Wilson and Calvert-Lewin, he was probably the one which I thought, stay well clear of him, the other 2. And he's actually the one that's scoring the most goals and making the most impact, isn't he? So, you kind of think we've perhaps dropped a bit of a rick with that one. Definitely need some midfield cover because you can't go into the rest of the Premier League season having lost Cullen with just Florentino and Ugo Chukwu, because we just don't have enough cover there. You lose one of them and, you are back to playing Laurent in there. You're back to playing Hannibal, who's, never lasting 90 minutes because of his antics. So that's a big problem. But I also think, Martin's right in terms of what's the plan? What are you buying for? Are you buying for the rest of the Premier League season? Are you buying for the champion with one eye on the Championship? If you're getting loans in, they're often going to be players like Breuer, who's not had a lot of game time. They're going to be, you're not getting Premier League starting 11 loan players, are you? You know, you're not going to Chelsea and saying, you know, give us Caicedo or give us, you know, you're not saying that. You're saying, have you got any kids in the in the boot room or in the academy or frozen?
It isn't
out
kids
of
we
it?
need. It isn't kids we need, is it?
No, exactly. You know, even if you go and kind of go, look, can we have a cheeky bid for Raheem Sterling? The guy's not kicked a football in anger for the first half of the season. And we've got his own players like that at Turf Moor and at Goforth. January's a horrible kind of time to try and do business because the players you're getting, unless you're getting a, you know, Semenyo and you're paying what City are paying for him, you're not getting players who are already in proven Premier League starting lineups. You're getting players who you're taking a chance on. This is our problem. Every player we're in for, it's a gamble, calculated or otherwise. It's a risk, you know. And I think that's the big problem.
Yeah, I've just thought of one name, and again, I've no idea what sort of season he's had and living in Sheffield. What about Hamer again? Been mentioned before, hasn't he? I know he's not got 90 minutes in him, but again, if he could unlock a defence in the first, I don't know, hour of a match, that might be the sort of thing that we're looking for. Again, it's a midfielder. United are not going anywhere, are they? You know, the best they can hope for is a mid-table finish, I think, now. He's definitely a good player, isn't he? You know, stamina apart, I think he would be the sort of calibre of player that we can get in. What would they want for him? Do they want lows like Andrew's saying? You know, January tends to be inflated prices, doesn't it? I don't know. That's just one name that into my head there that I think would be a decent quality signing.
Maybe there's some faces in the ownership model's sister clubs that we might be able to take. I mean, Koleosho was one who we thought was coming back, and he's been rapidly shipped out to Paris. But this ownership model, you know, a bit like the Liam Rossini management thing with Strasbourg and Chelsea. If you've got sister clubs, you can ship players around between them. Chelsea did that a lot. You know, maybe Espanyol have a couple we can nick.
Well, I mean, you've got the lad who used to be at Rovers, haven't you? I mean, he's started, I think, 17 of the 18 La Liga games. So, you know, you're asking them to kind of give up a player who's, you know, a regular in their starting lineup. But I think, you know, he looks to have done well. I mean, he was at Burnley early in his career in the academy or centre of excellence at least. You know, left Blackburn Rovers on a free, joined Espanyol, and you know has made a bit of a name for himself as you know the odd British player does in La Liga. But you know the problem you've got with the multi-club model, of course, is Espanyol are fifth, pushing for Europe. You know that's the shiny new toy, isn't it? Rather than the kind of you know terraced houses and bad weather of Burnley and the whippets and pickled eggs and all that lot. You know it's easy when the you know the northwest of England loses its charm when you've got a Barcelona derby and you're thinking you might get into the Europa League or even the Champions League qualifying spots.
It could be a problem, that Martin. You've got owners there who have got two clubs to sort of manage now, and the different diverse challenges they face. But, you know, if they're doing better than us, do they put the eggs in the Espanyol basket in terms of signings and players and money? Or do they just treat both separately and try and manage the best of both they can? It's a really, what's one the fans will be concerned about, I think.
No, and rightly so. I mean, the first thing I think is, I could be wrong on this because I'm not a financial expert, but I think the financial side of the Premier League is a lot stronger than La Liga in terms of the prize money you're getting. You know, let's not kid ourselves on that they're in this game to make money, aren't they, basically? And y'all are a pretty steady La Liga club. I don't know the last time they relegated. They did have a few yo-yo seasons because I just sort of followed them because I went and watched them years ago. But again, Andrew's saying super sexy, isn't it? Barcelona, going to be a nice stadium versus, you know, what we love, the turf, but East Lancashire doesn't really compete with Barcelona on that level. So yeah, I think the fans are right to be a bit concerned about that because we're looking like relegation. And
the problem you've got really with kind of the way Alan Pace runs things is he's all platitudes around kind of they're individual clubs, but there's a symbiotic relationship and it's good for both clubs and things like that. But he's a bit of a bullshit merchant, isn't he? Let's be honest. He's a bit of a snake oil salesman in terms of his, the fans would be amazed at how well we've done to finance the club and it's innovative and nobody's ever done it before and all of this nonsense. He's good at the buzzwords. He's good at the kind of smiley thing. I used to say it about Owen Coyle, and Daz will know about my, fairly well documented, as I've documented a few times, falling out with Coyle. But I used to say to people, Coyle's a bit of a a bit of a strange character in terms of, that he's brilliant in public, and all it takes is a appearance on Question of Sport where he flirts with Sue Barker and everyone loves him again regardless of what happened. And Pace is a little bit like that in the fact that, he shakes hands and he cleans tables in the fan zone, and you can speak to him in Tesco, and he'd much prefer to speak to the fans than the press and all this lot. But a lot of what he says is a bit politician-y, isn't it? It's a bit, all sunshines and rainbows, and he's got his little Kermit Frog voice and his big smiles, and he brushes things off because he's Teflon Man. And I get the impression that kind of, no matter what he says about Burnley, I think he was there again last night, so fair play to him. He does do a lot of travelling, and Mike Garlick used to come up from London, I think. So it's not like, him basing himself in Barcelona is a huge issue. But you just know that he's quite materialistic. He's all about optics and things going well. And at the minute, things are going well at Espanyol, and good luck to him. And I'm not one of these who thinks the multi-club ownership model is the work of the devil. I think there can be benefits. I just wonder what benefits we will get at Burnley if we suddenly start being the poor relation in terms of performances and, well, probably financial viability as well.
Well, there's 3 weeks of the transfer window to go. I suppose we're going to find out in the next 3 weeks where the intentions lie, because we keep being told we're going to do everything we can to stay in this league. So hopefully the money's going to be there to show that. Until then, of course, we've got the FA Cup this weekend. Up for the Cup, Burnley. We'll soon find out. But anyway, until then, and we'll be back to review that after the game. It's from me, Martin and Andrew, up the Clarets.